Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about senior candidates. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, great talk and thank you for sharing. So this was posted on one of my Git videos, I think. Speaking of Git, I'm curious that what if you are an experienced developer, say 3 to 5 years? Yeah, those are probably very arbitrary numbers. When you go to the market and hunt for new jobs, do you need to put a GitHub link on your resume like all the new grad students, even to your personal projects? Do things like sample coding Git and pet project websites help at all help at all with the experience? Do hiring managers care about it when they look for for more senior candidates? In a word, yes, it matters. The thing that you should know, on the other hand, is that there is what I like to call a gradient or like a hierarchy of importance whenever you do anything. It doesn't matter if whatever it's part of every decision that a human does when you're trying to set requirements for everything from hiring a developer to buying a car or picking a significant other or whatever. So you have things that are really important to you and you have things that are nice to have. And depending on what you're doing, these things they might sometimes be the same sort of thing. I mean, you might be looking for the same sort of thing in different types of developers, but if you're hiring, say, a junior developer, certain things are going to be very important, and some things you might not, even though they might have been super important, you might not even be able to request them. As an example, let's say that you really did want to have someone with 20 years of experience. Well, you're not going to be able to set that as a hard requirement on somebody who's fresh out of school, right? But maybe you also wanted someone who is sociable. Well, that's something that you can put on your requirements for hiring, say, a junior programmer. And so when we talk about seniors and juniors, the most of the things that apply to the junior is actually just a subset of what is going to be desirable for the senior. What I mean by that is that you can very much think of a senior developer from the perspective of a hiring manager as someone who should be the junior's entire profile as well as possible, or as much of that profile as possible, plus the other stuff that they need. And usually the other stuff that they need is, of course, more productivity, better decision-making processes and experience and all of this good stuff. But even so, one thing that always matters is your flair, your, as I like to call it, your personal identity as a software developer. Now, what is that? Well, I'm glad that you asked, because I think it is the thing that if you can understand this, and it's something that I didn't really get when I was starting out. I started understanding it more and more the more I worked. The personal identity for you in IT. Think about yourself as a bit of a jazz musician, or let's just say a musician, a freelance musician. So if you want to have a really good brand, a personal brand, if that makes sense, you have to think about, okay, what types of things am I bringing to the table, and promote those things as well as you can on your profile. It's the same thing. I mean, if you look at the different artists who are making music, I mean they're not tied to the big record companies. Like, they're just musicians themselves. And if they want some gigs or they want people to hire them, well, they are going to have to make a little bit of a splash, and they're going to have some hook or something that makes them interesting. And that never goes away. It stays that way forever, and it starts when you're a junior developer. You're not going to be able to necessarily, in some cases, know what you're all about when you're first starting out your career, but these things, showing off your repositories, your side projects, or if you're blogging or you're doing anything that is worth, like I like to say, is this conversation worthy? Is this something where if you had a chat with someone, even if it wasn't for a job, would this be something you would tell, say, a fellow developer? Oh yeah, I really like functional programming, and I have some small open source projects in. Haskell or whatever. If that is something that you can feel is appropriate, well, then it's actually a benefit to you to include it into your CV or to your conversations with an interviewer and so forth. It may not be the thing, as I was saying, it's a priority thing, right? That's not necessarily the thing that's going to get you hired. As a junior developer, it might be, because as a junior developer, the hierarchy of what is important to the hiring manager is going to be a little bit different, because they can't look for super experience and so forth. So what they're going to look for is potential. And that's what the juniors are doing. The grad students are showing potential and incentive and motivation and a willingness to learn by showing off their portfolios. As a senior or a more experienced developer, these things still matter, because you are not, I promise you, going to you're at the very least, you're not going to get hindered from showing that you love that you love your career, you love your job, and you're willing to learn, and you're hungry, and you're enthusiastic. These are all good things. They may not be the only thing that gets you the job, because when you get more experience, remember, well, you're gonna most likely cost the company a little bit of more money, so they're going to want some more output from you and more experience, so that's going to be there as well. But it's not going to hurt you, I promise you that. It can only be the benefit. I would even go as far as to say that at a certain point, when you get to a certain age, that brand that you build up as a senior software developer, and the energy that you output, both from your CV and the way that you treat people and you talk and your value system and all that stuff, is going to matter more to you than you can possibly imagine. It is going to be the thing that dictates whether or not you get like management positions, or if you get hired as like a ridiculously the I'm not going to say overpay, but ridiculously paid super senior consultant or things like that. Because at some point, your experience level and your years in the industry are going to be so vast that most people are just talking, they want to talk to you not because you do the coding, because they have people who are 10, 20 years younger than you who does the coding. What they need you for is to steer everything, to make sure that everything is fine, and to leverage all of that vast experience that you have. And if you can show a very strong personal brand that you are the sort of person they really want to get in bed with, then that is the best thing that you can possibly do. So what I want you to take away from this is that even for a senior experience, or someone who's more experienced in software development, it is a good thing for you to start thinking a little bit about your personal brand. Now, I'm not telling you to sit there and make a bunch of to-do apps or fake websites and stuff like that. You have to understand what I mean when I say personal brand. There are so many types of personal brands that you can have. I mean, take myself as an example. So yeah, I have a few small open source projects that has some downloads, and a lot of it is just garbage that I make either or so forth. But the videos that I make here on YouTube, that's also something. And there are many people who say do Medium blogging and things like that, or they go on meetups and do like TikToks and stuff like that. There's so many ways that you can communicate through your CV that you are the sort of person who really enjoys the work that you do, and you're good at it. And that is ultimately the thing that is going to matter. And as I said, for a junior developer, this might be the thing that the hiring manager looks the most at, because they don't have all those years of experience. But that's not required of them, because they're a junior hire. For a more experienced developer, those things are going to matter. But the stuff that the junior is doing is still very relevant to the senior. And in some cases, I promise you, this has happened to me as well. These things have made the difference. If I didn't have the years, that of course would have been a deal breaker, but I had enough of the years and all of this extra stuff on top, with all the ambitions and motivation and personal brand, that it actually tipped the thing in my favor. And I've been told so many times before, and I have myself hired senior developers when I had the choice between someone who they were pretty much equal. They were really good, both of them, but one person was a little bit nicer to deal with, or had a little bit more fire and hunger than the other person. So that's the person that won. Have a great day.